My mother thought she had executed the ultimate power move when she canceled my five-star hotel reservation while I was 30,000 feet in the air, leaving me a voicemail to find a cheap motel. She wanted to humble me in front of my entitled stepsister and prove that no matter how successful I became, she still controlled my life. What my mother didn't realize was that I wasn't just a guest at that luxury resort. I was the executive corporate strategist who oversaw their entire international loyalty program and private VIP holdings. 3 minutes after my flight landed, I made a single call to the general manager. By the time my mother and stepsister strutted up to the front desk expecting to reign over the presidential suite, their key cards were revoked, their reservation was erased, and their smug smiles vanished into thin air. My name is Claire Vance. I'm 31 years old, and if my years in corporate strategy have taught me anything, it's that people who play games usually forget to check who owns the board. Before we get to the moment my plane touched down on the tarmac, do me a favor, comment the city you're watching from down below so I can see how far our story travels today. 30,000 feet in the air, I was sitting in first class, sipping sparkling water and looking forward to a week of ocean breeze in Miami. My mother, Evelyn, had organized a grand family vacation at the Grand Azure Resort, a world-class, five-star property. I had personally handled the logistics, making sure everything was arranged down to the smallest detail. Or so I thought. The second the flight crew gave the okay to turn off airplane mode, my phone vibrated so violently it nearly slipped from my hand. Dozens of notifications flooded the screen, but one visual voicemail from my mother stood out. I pressed play. Claire, her voice crackled through my earbuds, dripping with a sickening mixture of authority and smug satisfaction. I went into the reservation system and fixed your little mistake. You don't need a lavish oceanfront suite all to yourself when your stepsister, Chloe, brought her friends. I canceled your room. You can find a cheap motel near the airport. Family makes sacrifices, Claire. Don't cause a scene. I sat in dead silence as the aircraft taxied toward the gate. My mother had used our shared family loyalty profile, the one I had set up years ago, to go behind my back mid-flight, cancel my reservation, and hand the premium accommodations over to her favorite stepdaughter. She thought she had stripped away my dignity before I even stepped foot inside the terminal. She thought she had forced me onto my knees to beg for a place to sleep. What my mother had completely forgotten, however, was a minor detail about my job. And in less than 3 minutes, she was going to learn just how expensive her arrogance really was. To understand why my mother thought she could get away with this, you have to understand the dynamic of our family. For years, Evelyn viewed me as little more than a personal ATM with an impressive job title. When she married Chloe's father 6 years ago, Chloe instantly became the golden child, the delicate, aspiring influencer who needed everything handed to her on a silver platter. I was the responsible one, the workhorse expected to foot the bill, smile gracefully, and sit at the kids' table while they enjoyed the fruits of my labor. Evelyn assumed this trip would follow the exact same script. She thought I would land, panic, check into some dingy 2-star motel off the highway, and then show up late to dinner looking defeated while Chloe posted photos from my ocean view balcony. She had no idea she had just walked right into a trap of her own making. What Evelyn and Chloe never quite grasped about my career was the exact nature of my position. They knew I worked in corporate hospitality, but they never bothered to ask for details. If they had, they would have known that I was the senior vice president of corporate strategy for the global parent company that owned the Grand Azure Resort and 52 other luxury properties worldwide. I didn't just have a reservation there. I held the highest internal executive authority in the entire network. As I walked down the jet bridge into the Miami terminal, I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, I pulled on my contacts and dialed a private number. Julian, I said calmly when a line picked up on the second ring. Ms. Vance. Good afternoon, replied Julian Vance, no relation, but the general manager of the Grand Azure and someone who reported directly to my division. We are honored to have you staying with us this week. Your presidential suite is fully prepared. Actually, Julian, we have a slight situation, I said, stepping past the crowded baggage claim. My mother just used an outdated administrative override on my personal loyalty account to cancel my suite mid-flight and reassign it to her stepdaughter. I want a full audit of that transaction right now, and I want her access revoked. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Consider it done, Ms. Vance. How would you like us to handle their arrival? I smiled as I hailed a black car. Let them try to check in. By the time my black car pulled up to the Grand Valet Court of the resort, Evelyn and Chloe were already inside, completely unaware that their master plan was about to crash into a brick wall. The lobby of the Grand Azure was a masterpiece of polished marble, soaring ceilings, and sweeping views of the Atlantic Ocean. Evelyn and Chloe stood near the front desk like nobility surveying a kingdom they believed they owned. Chloe was wearing oversized designer sunglasses inside, holding her phone high to record a grand vlog entrance, while my mother tapped her French manicured nails impatiently on the marble counter. "We are checking into the presidential suite," Evelyn announced to the young front desk agent, her voice elevated just enough so the other guests waiting nearby could hear. "Under the name Whitaker. My daughter arranged it, but there was a mix-up with the primary guest name. We've corrected it." The front desk agent typed politely into her computer. "One moment, ma'am. Let me pull up the file." I stood near a giant floral arrangement about 20 feet away, smoothly blending into the background as I watched the drama unfold. As the agent tapped a few keys, the pleasant smile on her face slowly evaporated. Her eyes widened slightly, and a bright red notification banner flashed across her terminal screen. The system had flagged the reservation for an unauthorized mid-flight administrative modification and suspected fraudulent account activity. "Is there a problem?" Evelyn snapped, her patronizing tone cutting through the quiet hum of the lobby. "We've had a very long flight, and my daughter needs to get ready for her evening photo shoot." "Ma'am, the system has locked this reservation," the agent said, trying to maintain her professional composure. "It appears the primary account holder's credentials were modified without executive authorization." "That is absurd." Evelyn raised her voice further, attracting glances from nearby VIPs. "I am her mother. I have full right to manage our family account. Override it immediately and give us the keys." Before the agent could respond, a side door opened, and Julian, the general manager, stepped out wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit. His expression was cool, precise, and completely devoid of warmth. "Is there an issue here, Mr. Sterling?" Evelyn demanded, recognizing his title from his name tag. "Your staff seems incapable of handing over our keys." Julian looked at the screen, then looked directly at Evelyn. "Mrs. Whitaker, there is indeed an issue. This reservation belongs to Senior Vice President Vance. And as of 3 minutes ago, your attempted modification has been flagged as internal corporate fraud." Evelyn's face turned an unsightly shade of crimson. "Fraud? How dare you? I am her mother. I demand you give us our room right now, or I will have you fired by the end of the day." Julian didn't blink. "You are not in a position to fire anyone, Mrs. Whitaker. In fact, because you used unauthorized credentials to alter a high-ranking corporate officer's personal booking, the system has automatically canceled the entire reservation. There is no presidential suite for you. There is no room at all." "What?" Chloe shrieked, dropping her phone's recording ring light onto the marble floor. "Where am I supposed to stay? I have 3,000 followers waiting for a tour of this suite. I suggest a motel near the airport." A calm, familiar voice resonated from behind them. Evelyn and Chloe spun around, their jaws dropping as I stepped out from behind the lobby's grand centerpiece. I was dressed in a crisp ivory blazer, designer sunglasses resting on my head, looking completely unbothered. "Claire?" Evelyn gasped, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and panic. "What did you do? Fix this right now. Tell this man who we are." "He knows exactly who you are, Mother," I said smoothly, stepping past them toward the counter. "He also knows who I am." Julian stepped forward with a warm, respectful bow. "Welcome to the Grand Azure, SVP Vance. We have resecured your original booking under your private executive profile. Here are the master key cards to the penthouse suite." He handed me a sleek black envelope. Evelyn looked between Julian and me, the realization finally crashing down on her like a tidal wave. The color drained from her face as she realized my true corporate standing and the sheer magnitude of the mistake she had just made. Wait. Claire, sweetie, Evelyn stammered, her voice shifting into a pathetic, artificial sweetness. There's been a huge misunderstanding. We were just trying to hold a room for you. Save it, Evelyn. I interrupted, my tone icy cold. Julian signaled discreetly to two tall security guards standing near the entrance. Mrs. Whitaker, since you do not have a valid reservation and have engaged in unauthorized access to corporate property, I must ask you to leave the premises immediately. Security will assist you with your luggage out to the curb. As the guards stepped forward, Chloe began to sob, while my mother stood frozen in absolute humiliation, surrounded by whispering luxury guests. Their grand entrance had turned into a public eviction. I spent the next 7 days high above the Atlantic Ocean in the oceanfront penthouse suite, enjoying room service, quiet mornings on the terrace, and absolute peace. Down at the airport highway, Evelyn and Chloe were forced to pay out of pocket for a last-minute room at a noisy 2-star motel. To make matters worse, the system automatically charged Evelyn's card a hefty cancellation fee for attempting to tamper with an executive corporate profile. For the rest of the week, Chloe's social media followers were treated to photos of stained carpets and broken ice machines instead of oceanfront infinity pools. When I returned home, I didn't wait for the dramatic phone calls. I spent the afternoon revoking every shared loyalty profile, canceling the authorized user credit cards I had generously given my mother over the years, and cutting off the joint accounts that funded their lavish lifestyle. For 6 years, Evelyn and Chloe treated me like a convenience, someone to exploit when they wanted luxury, and someone to discard when they wanted to assert control. But respect is not something you demand while holding out your hand for a handout. Today, Evelyn is scrambling to cover her own credit card bills, and Chloe has been forced to get a real job after her influencer dreams sputtered out. Neither of them has received a single dollar, booking perk, or hotel upgrade from me since that day in Miami. They wanted me to learn my place in the family, but in the end, they were the ones who learned that when you try to burn someone else's bridge, you usually end up stranded on the wrong side. Thank you so much for watching my story until the very end. Have you ever had to stand your ground against entitled family members? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to click on the next video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible story.